First, cleaners have held a noisy protest this morning outside the headquarters of a government department after staging a walkout over pay. It is the first ever coordinated strike action by cleaners walking out simultaneously across 5 different sites in London for 3 days. The cleaners are mostly migrants and work at the Ministry of Justice, Kensington and Chelsea Council and private health providers. They are striking because they want to earn the London living wage. That's £10.20 an hour. It's almost £2.50 more than the statutory national living wage that they get at the moment. They're all employed by outsourced companies, but today Kensington and Chelsea Council have told this programme that they will be taking back the services currently provided by the contractor Amy, which employs the cleaners at the council. Well, we can speak now to Willan Arias-Bermeo, who's a cleaner at Kensington and Chelsea Council. We're also joined by Petros Ilia, founder of the United Voices of the World Union, which has organised the strikes, and also Emma Dent-Coad, who's Labour MP for Kensington. Thank you all very much for joining us.
Thank you.
First of all, Willan, if you can tell us why it is that you went on strike. Tell us what your situation has been.
Well, good morning. Thank you very much. My situation nowadays is very difficult, because we can't live with the minimum wages, which is very difficult. We have to work. In my case, I have to work very hard to get, a good life, I can say here. So that is the reason that every day from Monday to Saturday, I work around 13, 14 hours per day. So imagine that it's very hard, very difficult.
And how much do you earn for working those long hours?
The minimum wages,
Yeah.
£7.83.
So what does that mean for you in terms of managing your outgoings and what you have left at the end of that?
Well, in my case, I paid my rent, which is £600 per month. I have to pay my transport as well, bills as well, And also I've got my parents and my sister in my country. I sent some money to support them as well. So at the end of the month, for me to live here in London, it's around £100.
Petros, you organised the strike. Tell us more about the sort of bigger picture.
Well, ultimately, these strikes are against poverty pay, which Kensington and Chelsea Council are paying their cleaners, as is the Ministry of Justice. And so the cleaners, all of whom are migrants, like William, they're taking a stand and they're really leading the way, and they're showing what can be done if workers come together, if they organise, if they unionise, and if they make their demands collectively. And these strikes, as you said in the introduction, they're unprecedented, they're coordinated across government departments, local councils. And they're really demanding a wage that they can live on. That's it. It's very simple. At the moment, they're not earning enough to get by. They deserve to earn a living wage, as does every worker out there. And that's why they're striking, because their demands have not been met.
We've had statements through both from Kensington and Chelsea Council and also Amy, which is the private company that Kensington and Chelsea contracts through. Yes. Kensington and Chelsea have said they always seek to get value for money for residents and taxpayers, to which we're held accountable. We're not prepared to pay more for a contract with a private sector company which has a turnover of billions and which clearly has the resources to pay staff appropriately. We do not control what Amy pay their own staff. However, we can announce today that over the next few months we'll be taking back the services that they currently provided to us, and we will review all the associated costs and services at that time. And Amy has said Amy's committed to the well-being of its employees and is fully compliant with the national minimum wage and the national living wage. We have a number of agreements with London councils to pay the London living wage. The Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea made no such request, and so the staff on this contract currently receive the national living wage. As we've said on several occasions, the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea can at any point vary the contract with us to accommodate the introduction of the London living wage. Who's at fault here?
I mean, I'm loath to side with the contractor in this case. I mean, most cleaning contractors, many at least, are very unscrupulous. They will always seek to cut costs off the back of their workers, off the back of their lowest paid workers. Having said that, Kensington and Chelsea Council are to blame. They set the price, they decide the cleaners' wages, they decide the cleaners' terms and conditions.
Do they just pay a fee to the contractor and they don't actually know whether the workers are getting the national living wage or whatever?
No, that's not the case at all. So they are lying in, claiming that the wages are set by the contractor, claiming that it's out of their hands to increase the cleaners' wages is a lie. They set the wages. They would negotiate, sit down with the contractor at the start of their contract and decide exactly how much the cleaners will be paid per hour.
They're implying, obviously, that they're not happy with the situation by saying that they're actually going to take the contract now away from Amy.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's testament to the collective action which the cleaners are taking, because that announcement certainly would not have been made had the cleaners not made that decision to go out on strike. And so we welcome that news, but obviously they have not committed to what the cleaners will be paid when they're brought in-house or what their terms and conditions would be. And I think we all know what kind of a council Kensington and Chelsea is, and so they can hardly be trusted by those kind of ambiguous statements.
Emma, what do you want to see happening here?
Well, we've been waiting for this for 8 years. We've been debating as a councillor. I was a councillor on council for 12 years. We've been arguing the case for London living wage for many, many years. And every time we brought it to council, the argument has been we can't afford it. It will cost £1 million a year to pay all our contracted workers London living wage. We only have a few ourselves. So they're very, very aware of the situation. Very aware of the situation. They're also very aware that some people can't afford on this wage. The last comment we had when we brought it up this spring in the budget comment was that, oh, well, they can always take an additional job, which is what William has done. And that's really not an answer. So this is what they're saying. What they're saying now, oh, we're going to take it back later and then we'll see, really isn't good enough. We've been arguing this for 8 years. Our council can afford it. They choose to spend money on other things. They choose to subsidise opera and all kinds of other things for the same amount, but they won't actually pay people a decent wage so they don't have to rely on benefits.
8 years is a long time to be having an argument like this.
Yeah.
Why couldn't... I mean, what points were you making? Were you making it forcefully enough?
Absolutely, no, because Labour councillors, and I'm still a councillor as well as MP, we are in a minority, so they can just say no. They can say no, and they can say, well, they can take an additional job, or we can't afford it, or actually that's what benefits are for. It's really not good enough. They have to step up and they have to take responsibility. This is a council, as we know, who's very happy to value engineer on social housing, for example, as we've seen at Grenfell Tower. And they will not. They say there's been a culture change. They have to actually show that there has been a culture change and pay people a decent wage so they have the dignity of being able to look after their families or send money home. If William had children, he'd be really struggling. I know some of the workers have children and they do really struggle to put food on the table. It's not acceptable for what is still a rich council. They haven't committed. They have to commit to that themselves. They have to do it now.
They have to stand for election, and as you say, these are issues that have been around for some time. I mean, people know what they're voting for.
Yeah. Interestingly, one of the commitments that the council made a few years ago was to give people back some of their council tax just before an election, and that cost them £7 million in 1 year. This is something they wasted. And interestingly, some of the Conservative voters at that time...
But the point is, the people are voting for what they want.
Yeah, but some of the Conservative voters at that time, they can't actually change the council's mind, and it has to be quite a big swing, as I had last year, to make people commit to radical political change. But a lot of Conservatives at that time, they said, we don't want this £100. We're giving it to local charities. So a lot of people were actually quite shocked by even Conservative voters by what the council had decided to do. And we're hoping today that, having brought this to national attention, that some of our voters across Kensington, there's plenty of decent people with or without money, will stand up and say to the council, we have to pay people a living wage, a proper living wage.
Will, and as we've said, the Kensington and Chelsea Council said that they're now going to take away the contract from Amy. Do you think, are you hopeful that things are going to change?
I think, yeah, definitely it's going to change here for us. Yeah, that is we are fighting for this because we want to live better here.
How long have you been trying to make the point, and do you feel like going on strike is actually the only thing that's made a difference?
Well, in my case, we are living, I'm working for the company for 3 years, and during this time, we are waiting for that. So it's like if this is our chance now. Otherwise, if we no fight now, I think there's no hope for us.
Thank you all very much. Thank you.
Thank you.